Most people go through life believing that they are victims of circumstance, that they must accept whatever life hands them, that they are powerless to change their conditions. They pray to a God outside of themselves. They hope for luck. They wait for opportunities. And they wonder why their lives remain the same year after year. But I tell you tonight, you are not a victim. You are not powerless. You are not at the mercy of external forces. You are the operant power of your world, and the universe must respond to you when you learn to speak its language. The secret I am about to reveal to you is this: your imagination is God. Not a God among many gods, but the only God there is. Your wonderful human imagination is the creative power of the universe itself, individualized as you. When you imagine, you are not engaging in idle fantasy. You are literally creating your future. You are commanding the universe to rearrange itself according to your imaginal act. This is not metaphor. This is not poetry. This is the absolute truth of existence. But you must understand what imagination truly is. It is not mere visualization or daydreaming. True imagination is the ability to assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. It is the capacity to enter into a state of consciousness where you experience your desires already accomplished. When you can do this completely, when you can live in that assumption with such conviction that it feels more real than your present circumstances, then you have spoken the creative word, and the universe must respond. Now let me explain to you how this works. Everything that exists in your world, everything you can see and touch and experience, first existed as an imaginal act in consciousness. Your present circumstances, your relationships, your health, your wealth or lack thereof, your life thereof, your home, everything in your experience was first imagined before it became fact. But here is what most people do not understand. You are constantly imagining. Every moment of every day, you are creating through your imagination. The question is not whether you are using your imagination, but whether you are using it consciously and deliberately to create what you want, or unconsciously to perpetuate what you do not want. Most people use their imagination against themselves. They imagine the worst possible outcomes. They replay past hurts and disappointments. They project their current limitations into the future. They imagine conversations where they are rejected, situations where they fail, circumstances where they are powerless. And because imagination is the creative power, these negative imaginings become their reality. They create through their imagination exactly what they do not want. And then they wonder why their lives are filled with struggle and disappointment. But you can reverse this process. You can begin to use your imagination deliberately and consciously to create the life you truly desire. You do this by learning to control your inner conversations, by disciplining your mind to dwell only on what you want to experience, by assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, until that assumption becomes natural to you. Let me give you a practical example. Suppose you desire greater financial abundance. Most people, when they think about money, immediately feel the lack of it. They imagine all the bills they cannot pay, all the things they cannot afford, all the reasons why they will never have enough. This feeling of lack, this assumption of poverty, becomes their creative state. And the universe responds by giving them more experiences of lack and limitation. But if you understand the secret I am sharing with you tonight, you will do something entirely different. You will dare to assume that you already have the financial abundance you desire. You will imagine how it would feel to have more than enough money for all your needs and desires. You will live in that assumption. You will think from that state rather than about that state. You will imagine conversations where people congratulate you on your success. You will feel the satisfaction of being able to give generously to others. You will assume the mental attitude of someone who has abundant resources. At first, your rational mind will rebel against this assumption. It will tell you that you are being foolish, that you are denying reality, that you are engaging in wishful thinking. But you must persist. You must continue to live in your assumption, despite the evidence of your senses, despite the protests of reason, the opinions of others. For imagination is more real than fact, and your assumption, persisted in, will become your reality. This is the great secret that has been hidden in plain sight throughout the ages. It has been taught in the mystical traditions of every culture, encoded in the sacred texts of every religion. Yet it has been misunderstood and misinterpreted by those who could not accept its radical implications. For if you truly understood that your imagination is God, that you are the curator of your own experience, that you have the power to change your life simply by changing your assumptions, then you would no longer be dependent on external authorities. You would no longer need priests or teachers or gurus to intercede for you. You would know yourself as the operant power of your world. But understanding this intellectually is not enough. You must prove it to yourself through experience. You must test this principle in the laboratory of your own life. Choose something you desire, something specific and definite. Not something vague like happiness or success, but something concrete that you can clearly imagine having or being or experiencing. Then assume that you already have it. Live in that assumption. Think from it rather than about it. Persist in this assumption regardless of what your senses tell you, regardless of what others say, regardless of how impossible it may seem. And here is what will happen. The universe will begin to rearrange itself to match your assumption. Opportunities will appear that were not there before. People will come into your life who can help you. Circumstances will align in ways that seem miraculous but are actually the natural result of your imaginal act. What you have assumed in imagination will gradually externalize itself in your world of experience. But you must be willing to live in the end. This is perhaps the most difficult part for most people to understand and accept. They want to imagine the process, the how, the steps between their current state and their desired state. But the creative power works from the end backwards. You must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You must live in the satisfaction of already having what you desire. And then the universe work out the details of how it will come to pass. This requires a complete reversal of the way most people think. They believe that first they must work hard, struggle, overcome obstacles, and then maybe, if they are lucky, they will achieve their goals. But I tell you that this is backwards. First, you must assume the feeling of already having achieved your goal. And then the work, the opportunities, the circumstances will appear to make it so. You do not create through effort and struggle. You create through assumption and feeling. Now let me address a concern that may be arising in your mind. You may be thinking, but surely I cannot simply imagine whatever I want and expect it to happen. There must be limits. There must be laws that govern what is possible and what is not. And you are right that there are laws, but they are not the laws you think they are. The only law that governs manifestation is the law of assumption. Whatever you assume to be true, if you persist in that assumption, will become your reality. There are no other limits except those you accept in your own mind. You see, what you call the physical world is not as solid and fixed as it appears. It is actually a world of symbols, a reflection of consciousness, a mirror of your inner states. When you change your inner state, when you change your assumptions, the outer world must change to conform to your new inner reality. This is not magic, this is not supernatural, this is the natural operation of consciousness itself. But you must be careful what you assume. For assumption is creative, whether it is positive or negative, whether it serves you or limits you. If you assume that you are unlucky, that you are always struggling, that good things happen to other people but not to you, then these assumptions will create experiences that confirm them. If you assume that you are blessed, that opportunities come easily to you, that you live a charmed life, then these assumptions will create experiences that confirm them instead. Most people are unconscious of their assumptions. They have inherited them from their family, their culture, their past experiences, and they accept them as truth without question. They assume that they are limited by their education, their background, their age, their circumstances, and these assumptions become the invisible walls of their prison. But when you become conscious of your assumptions, when you realize that you can choose what to assume, then you become free. You become the architect of your own experience. This is why I say that you must be born again, not in some religious sense, but in the sense of assuming a new identity, a new set of beliefs about yourself and your capabilities. You must die to your old self-concept and be resurrected as the person you truly want to be. This death and resurrection happens in imagination. You imagine yourself as already being the person you want to become, And you persist in this assumption until it becomes natural to you. Let me give you another example. Suppose you see yourself as shy and socially awkward. This self-concept creates experiences that confirm it. You avoid social situations. You feel nervous when meeting new people. You assume that others will not like you, and your behavior reflects these assumptions. But if you understand the secret I am sharing with you, you will begin to assume a new identity. You will imagine yourself as confident and charismatic. You will feel how it would feel to be at ease in social situations. You will assume that people are drawn to you, that you have interesting things to say, that you are welcomed wherever you go. At first, this new assumption will feel unnatural, even false. Your old self-concept will resist it. But if you persist, if you continue to live in this new assumption, something wonderful will happen. Your behavior will gradually change to match your assumption. You will find yourself speaking up more, taking social risks, engaging with others in ways you never did before. And because you are acting from a different assumption, people will respond to you differently. Your new self-concept will create new experiences that confirm it. This is the great secret of transformation. You do not become confident by acting confident. You act confident by assuming that you are already confident. You do not become successful by working hard to achieve success. You work from the assumption that you are already successful. And the work becomes the natural expression of that success rather than the struggle to attain it. But remember, assumption is not a mental exercise, it is a feeling. You must feel yourself to be what you want to be. You must assume the emotional state of having your desire fulfilled. This is why I say you must live in the end. You must capture the feeling you would have if your desire were already a reality. And you must live in that feeling until it becomes your natural state. And here is something else you must understand. There is no one to change but self. The whole vast world is yourself pushed out. Every person in your life, every situation you encounter, every condition you experience is a reflection of your own consciousness. When you change yourself, when you change your assumptions, the world around you must change to reflect your new inner state. This means that you are not trying to change other people or external circumstances. You are not trying to manipulate or control anything outside of yourself. You are simply changing your own consciousness, your own assumptions, your own inner state. And the external world changes automatically to match it. This is the most liberating truth you can ever learn. For it means that you are never at the mercy of external conditions. You are always the operant power, always the one in control. But with this power comes responsibility. If you are the creator of your experience, then you must take full responsibility for everything that happens in your life. You cannot blame others. You cannot blame circumstances. You cannot blame luck or fate or God. Whatever you are experiencing is the result of your own consciousness, your own assumptions, your own imaginings. This may be difficult to accept at first, especially if you are experiencing difficult or unpleasant conditions. But accepting this responsibility is also the key to your freedom. For if you created your current experience, then you have the power to create a different experience. Now, you may be wondering how to apply this knowledge practically. How do you actually change your assumptions? How do you live in the feeling of the wish fulfilled? How do you make this abstract principle work in your concrete daily life? The answer is through the practice of controlled imagination. Every night before you fall asleep, when your mind is naturally relaxed and receptive, you imagine a scene that would naturally follow from the fulfillment of your desire. You do not imagine yourself getting what you want. You imagine yourself already having it. You construct a short scene, a brief dramatic moment that implies the fulfillment of wish. And you replay this scene over and over in your imagination until it feels real to you. For example, if you desire a promotion at work, you do not imagine yourself asking for the promotion or working hard to earn it. Instead, you imagine a scene where you are already in your new position. Perhaps you imagine a colleague congratulating you on your promotion, or you imagine yourself sitting in your new office, or you imagine your family celebrating your success. You choose one simple scene, and you make it vivid and real in your imagination. The key is to feel the reality of the scene. You must experience it as if it were actually happening. You must hear the congratulations, feel the handshake, see the expressions on people's faces, smell the flowers on your new desk. You must involve all your senses and emotions in making the scene as real as possible. And most importantly, you must feel the satisfaction, the joy, the sense of fulfillment that would naturally accompany the realization of your desire. You repeat this imaginal act night after night until it becomes natural to you, until you no longer have to force yourself to believe it, until it feels as real as any memory of something that has already happened. When you reach this point, when your assumption becomes natural and automatic, then you have impressed your subconscious mind with your desire, and it will work to bring it to pass in your external world. But during the day, you must also be vigilant about your thoughts and feelings. You must catch yourself when you slip back into your old assumptions. When you find yourself thinking thoughts that contradict your desire, when you feel emotions that deny your wish fulfilled, you must gently but firmly redirect your attention to your new assumption. You must think from your desired state rather than about it. This is not always easy. Your rational mind will present you with evidence that contradicts your assumption. Your senses will show you circumstances that seem to prove that your desire is not fulfilled. Other people may tell you that you are being unrealistic or delusional, but you must remain faithful to your assumption. You must persist in your imaginal act regardless of what appears to be true in the outer world. Remember, imagination creates reality, not the other way around. What you see in the external world is the result of past imagining. What you imagine now is creating your future reality. So do not let present circumstances discourage you or make you doubt your assumption. Know that as you persist in your new assumption, the external world must gradually conform to it. And here is something wonderful. As you continue to live in your assumption, you will find that it becomes easier and more natural. What once required effort and concentration will become automatic. You will find yourself naturally thinking and feeling from your desired state. You will discover that you have truly become the person you imagined yourself to be. This transformation is not just mental or emotional. It is a complete reorganization of your entire being. Your body language will change. Your speech patterns will change. Your habits and preferences will change. You will literally become a different person. One who naturally attracts and experiences the conditions you have assumed to be true. But remember, this is a process, not an event. Do not expect overnight transformation. Be patient with yourself as you learn to master this new way of being. Some assumptions will manifest quickly. Others may take more time. The key is persistence. Never give up on your assumption. Never accept defeat. Continue to live in the end regardless of how long it takes for the external world to catch up with your inner reality. And do not make the mistake of constantly checking for results. When you plant a seed in the ground, you do not dig it up every day to see if it is growing. You plant it, and then you let it grow naturally. In the same way, once you have planted your desire in consciousness through repeated imaginal acts, you must let it grow. Trust the process. Know that your assumption is working even when you cannot see evidence of it in the outer world. There will be times when you doubt, times when you wonder if this is all just wishful thinking, times when the evidence of your senses seems to contradict your assumption. This is natural and to be expected. But these moments of doubt are tests of your faith. They are opportunities to strengthen your conviction. When doubt arises, do not fight it. Simply return to your imaginal act. Feel once again the reality of your wish fulfilled. Remind yourself that imagination is the only reality and that your assumption persisted in must manifest in your world. You see, what I am teaching you is not positive thinking or the power of belief. Those are weak substitutes for the real thing. What I am teaching you is the creative power of assumption. When you truly assume something to be true, you do not need to believe it because you know it. You do not need to be positive about it because you are certain of it. You do not need to affirm it because you live it. This certainty, this knowing, this living from your assumption is what makes the universe respond. It is not your hoping or wishing or wanting that creates. It is your assuming, your accepting, your taking for granted that creates. When you can assume your desire to be already fulfilled with the same naturalness that you assume your name to be what it is, then you have mastered the secret of creation. And once you master this secret with one desire, you can apply it to any area of your life. You can assume perfect health and experience healing. You can assume loving relationships and attract wonderful people into your life. You can assume professional success and find opportunities opening up before you. You can assume financial abundance and discover sources of income you never imagined. There are no limits to what you can create through the power of assumption, except the limits you accept in your own mind. But with this great power comes great responsibility. Use it wisely. Use it for good. Remember that as you create your own reality, you are also contributing to the collective reality of humanity. What you assume for yourself affects not only your own life, but the lives of everyone around you. So assume the best not only for yourself, but for others as well. Live in the assumption that the world is becoming a better place, that humanity is evolving toward greater love and understanding, that peace and prosperity are possible for all. You are not separate from the universe. You are the universe individualized. When you learn to make the universe respond to you, you are not manipulating some external force. You are simply learning to consciously direct the creative power that you have always been. You are learning to take your rightful place as the operant power of your world. So I leave you tonight with this challenge. Choose one thing that you truly desire. Make it specific and definite. Then assume that you already have it. Live in that assumption. Think from it. Feel from it. Act from it. Persist in it regardless of appearances. And prove to yourself the truth of what I have told you tonight. The secret to changing your life is to make the universe respond. And the universe responds to assumption. Your wonderful human imagination, when disciplined and directed, is the most powerful force in creation. Use it consciously, use it deliberately, use it persistently. And you will discover that you are indeed the master of your fate, the captain of your soul, the creator of your destiny. This is not theory. This is not philosophy. This is practical mysticism. This is the way creation works. This is the secret that has been hidden from the masses, but revealed to those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. Tonight you have heard it. Now go and prove it in your own experience. Make the universe respond to you by assuming that it already has. The universe, this vast intelligent power that surrounds us, that lives in us, that is us, does not respond to your wants. And yet, this is the most liberating truth you will ever encounter, for it unveils the actual law by which your world is shaped, the fallacy of wanting. But Neville, you might say, I have been taught that I must want things intensely to attract them. This, my dear friends, is the first illusion we must dispel. Wanting by its very nature is an admission of lack. When you say I want, you are declaring to the universe, I do not have. And the universe, being the perfect mirror of consciousness, reflects back precisely this state of not having. Consider for a moment what the word want truly implies. To want is to be without. It is to stand in a state of absence, looking outward at something you do not possess. And as you stand firmly in this consciousness of absence, the law being no respecter of persons, but only of states, must continue to deliver experiences that match this consciousness of lack. I knew a man in New York who for years proclaimed his desire for financial abundance. Daily he affirmed, I want wealth. I want to be free of debt. Yet year after year, his financial situation deteriorated. One day, in desperation, he came to me, and I shared with him what I now share with you. The universe was not failing him. It was responding with perfect precision to his consciousness of wanting, of absence, of lack. The state to which the universe responds. If the universe does not respond to want, to what does it respond? It responds unfailingly to your state of being, to what you are claiming yourself to be in the depths of your consciousness. The universe does not care what you want. It only cares what you are. Every moment of your existence, you occupy a state. These states are countless. But at this very moment, you are in a state. It may be a state of health or illness, wealth or poverty, love or loneliness. And the universe, with mathematical precision, delivers experiences that correspond to this state. I am, these two words are the most powerful in all of existence. Whatever follows I am shapes your reality. When you declare I am sick, the universe does analyze whether you desire this sickness. It simply reflects back experiences that match this declaration. When you declare I am wealthy, even if your bank account appears empty, you are shifting into a state to which the universe must respond. What many fail to realize is that you need not wait for external evidence to claim a new state of being. In fact, the evidence will only follow your prior assumption. As I have told you time and again, imagination creates reality. But it is not what you imagine as something distant or separate from yourself. It is what you imagine yourself to be. The feeling I ask the secret. My beloved audience, here we approach the heart of the matter. The universe responds not to your thoughts, not to your words, not even to your occasional declarations. It responds to your consistent feeling, your emotional state, the mood that permeates your being. Feelings are the language of the soul. They are the true communication between you and the divine power that shapes your world. When you feel wealthy, you are wealthy in consciousness, and the universe must respond to this state. When you feel loved, you are loved in consciousness, and your world reshapes itself to reflect this truth. I recall a young woman who attended my lectures in Los Angeles. For years, she had been seeking a loving relationship, moving from one disappointing encounter to another. I want to be loved, she would say with tears in her eyes. And yet day after day, she walked through the world carrying a feeling of being unloved and unwanted. I instructed her to cease her wanting and instead to assume the feeling of being deeply loved. Before you sleep tonight, I told her, feel the warmth of loving arms around you. Feel the absolute certainty that you are cherished beyond measure. She followed this instruction not once, but night after night. Within a month, her entire demeanor had changed. She no longer moved through the world as one seeking love, but as one who knew herself to be loved. And as is always the case, when one assumes a new state, her external reality rearranged itself to match her inner knowing. The loving relationship she had sought appeared in her life, seemingly by chance, yet perfectly aligned with the law, living from the end. If the universe responds to your state of being, then the great secret of manifestation is to assume the state of your wish fulfilled. This is what I mean when I speak of living from the end. When you live from the end, you are not looking toward a desired future. You are experiencing it as present fact in your imagination. And imagination, when coupled with feeling, is the very substance of reality and formation. Consider this: every invention, every building, every work of art first existed in someone's imagination before it was made manifest in the physical world. The Wright brothers imagined human flight before they created the first airplane. Michelangelo saw David within the marble before his chisel touched the stone. In the same way, the life you desire already exists in potential, awaiting your assumption of its reality and consciousness. The universe does not need to create it anew. It needs only to move the existing pieces of your life to match your inner conviction. I knew a physician who dreamed of opening a clinic to serve those who could not afford medical care. For years he said, I want to open my clinic, yet he remained in his conventional practice. When he came to understand the principle I am sharing with you tonight, he began to assume the state of already running his dream clinic. Each night before sleep, he would imagine walking through the doors of his clinic. He would feel the satisfaction of treating patients regardless of their ability to pay. He would hear their words of gratitude. He would experience the fulfillment of his life's purpose not as a future event, but as a present reality. Within 6 months, a series of seemingly unrelated events led to the fulfillment of this dream. A building became available in precisely the location he had imagined. Funding appeared from unexpected sources. Medical supplies were donated by a company that was upgrading its equipment. The universe did not respond to his years of wanting. It responded immediately when he assumed the state of already being what he desired to be. The LAYS impersonal. My friends, I must emphasize that the law of which I speak is entirely impersonal. It does not judge whether your desires are noble or ignoble, spiritual or material. It simply responds to the state you occupy. This is why you will find both saints and criminals who understand the law and use it effectively. The saint assumes the state of communion with God and experiences divine revelations. The criminal assumes the state of successful theft and finds opportunities for ill-gotten gain. The law itself is neutral. It is the consciousness of the individual that determines how the law will operate in their personal experience. I am not suggesting that you use this knowledge for questionable purposes. I am merely illustrating that the universe does not make moral judgments about your desires. It simply reflects back to you the state you have chosen to occupy. This understanding should free you from any lingering belief that you must somehow be worthy of your desires. The only worthiness required is your willingness to assume the state of the wish fulfilled. The universe does not respond to your worthiness. It responds to your consciousness. The Sabbath, resting on the assumption, having recognized that the universe responds not to your wanting, but to your state of being. The question naturally arises, how do we maintain the desired state long enough for it to become our physical reality? The answer lies in what the ancient scriptures call the Sabbath. The Sabbath is not merely a day of the week. It is a state of consciousness. It is that moment when you rest from your labors, knowing that what you have been seeking is already yours in consciousness. When God completed the work of creation, he rested knowing it was finished. In the same way, once you have assumed the state of your wish fulfilled, you must rest in that assumption, knowing that the work is complete on the level of consciousness and its physical manifestation is assured. This rest is not inactivity. You will still go about your daily tasks, but you will do so from a new state of being, carrying within you the quiet confidence that what you have assumed in consciousness must, by law, become your physical experience. I have often told the story of a man who desired a promotion in his company. For months he had been passed over despite his qualifications. When he learned this principle, he began to assume the feeling of already occupying the new position. He mentally heard the congratulations of his colleagues. He felt the satisfaction of the increased responsibility and compensation. Having assumed this state, he then rested in his assumption. He did not anxiously check for signs of his promotion. He did not repeatedly discuss his desire with colleagues. He simply knew with unshakable conviction that in consciousness, the promotion was already his. 2 weeks later, he was called into his superior's office and informed that due to a reorganization of the company, a new position had been created, one that perfectly matched his skills and offered even greater advancement than he had imagined. The universe had responded not to his wanting, but to his being, the creative power of revision. There are times, my dear friends, when despite our best efforts, we find ourselves entrenched in undesirable states. Perhaps we have been living with a consciousness of illness, financial struggle, or strained relationships for so long that it seems impossible to assume a new state. In such moments, we can employ the powerful technique of revision. Revision is the art of reimagining past events to align with our desired state of being. It is not mere wishful thinking or denial of reality. It is a conscious restructuring of our relationship to our past. Consider that what we call the past exists only in our memory. And memory is not fixed, it is fluid, subject to constant reinterpretation. By revising our memories, we alter the foundations upon which our current state rests. I recall a woman who had experienced a bitter argument with her sister, leading to years of estrangement. The memory of that argument poisoned her thoughts and kept her in a state of resentment and loss. When she learned the principle of revision, she began each night to reimagine that pivotal conversation. In her imagination, she replaced harsh words with expressions of understanding. She felt the warmth of reconciliation instead of the cold of rejection. Night after night, she revised this memory until the new version felt more real to her than the original experience. Within a month, she received a letter from her sister expressing a desire to heal their relationship. The universe responded not to the historical facts, but to the woman's revised state of consciousness. The power of your assumptions. My friends, let us delve deeper into what truly shapes your reality. Your assumptions, even those of which you are not consciously aware, are constantly being projected into your experience. These assumptions are not merely thoughts. They are the deeply held convictions about yourself and the world that color your perception and draw corresponding experiences to you. Many go through life never examining their core assumptions. They assume life is difficult, people are untrustworthy, success is for the lucky few, or love is fleeting. And as they cling to these assumptions, the law faithfully delivers experiences that confirm them. I knew a businessman who, despite his intelligence and work ethic, repeatedly found himself in failed ventures. When we examined his assumptions, we discovered that deep within his consciousness lay the conviction that success requires struggle, and anything easily gained is not truly valuable. With this understanding, is it any wonder that the universe presented him with one struggle after another? He was not experiencing these difficulties because the universe was indifferent to his desires. He was experiencing them because the universe was responding perfectly to his assumptions about the nature of success. Once he recognized these hidden assumptions, he began the work of deliberately assuming their opposites. Success flows to me with ease, he would affirm before sleep. My prosperity benefits everyone it touches. As he persisted in these new assumptions, his external circumstances gradually transformed to match his inner canvas. The imaginal ACT. How then do we effectively transition from our current state to the desired state? Through what I call the imaginal act, a deliberate exercise of consciousness in which we temporarily set aside physical reality and immerse ourselves in the reality we wish to experience. The imaginal act is not daydreaming or idle fantasy. It is a controlled, purposeful use of imagination to create a sensory-rich experience of your wish fulfilled. During the imaginal act, you temporarily close the door on the world of the senses and open yourself to the world of infinite possibilities. For this exercise to be effective, it must include sensory detail. If you desire a new home, you must not merely see it, you must feel the doorknob in your hand, hear your footsteps on the floor, smell the freshness of the air, touch the texture of the walls. You must occupy the scene as if it were physically present. The power of the imaginal act lies not in its duration, but in its intensity. A single moment of complete immersion in the feeling of the wish fulfilled can be more effective than hours of half-hearted visualization. The key is to achieve what I call the feeling of reality. That moment when your imaginative experience feels as solid and substantial as any physical experience. I taught this principle to a young artist who had struggled for years to have his work recognized. Each night he would engage in an imaginal act in which he stood in a gallery surrounded by his paintings. He would hear specific words of appreciation from attendees. He would feel the quiet satisfaction of artistic recognition. Within 3 months, he was invited to participate in a group exhibition at a prestigious gallery, the very recognition he had been imagining. The universe responded not to his years of wanting recognition, but to his assumption of already having received it. The law of identical harvest. There exists a principle articulated in various spiritual traditions that you reap what you sow. I prefer to think of this as the law of identical harvest. Whatever you plant in consciousness Through your consistent assumptions, feelings, and imaginal acts must eventually flower into corresponding external experiences. This law operates with mathematical precision. If you plant corn, you cannot harvest wheat. If you plant assumptions of lack, you cannot harvest abundance. If you plant feelings of unworthiness, you cannot harvest experiences of being valued and appreciated. Many misunderstand this principle, believing that if they think positive thoughts occasionally while maintaining a consciousness of limitation, they will somehow reap positive results. But occasional thoughts have little power against the deeply rooted assumptions that govern your basic sense of identity and possibility. It is not what you think about occasionally, but what you consistently assume yourself to be that creates your reality. Your harvest will always be identical in kind to the seeds you have planted in consciousness. I recall a teacher who came to me in despair over her classroom of unruly students. I want them to be respectful and engaged, she said. Yet each day she walked into her classroom assuming conflict and resistance. Her consciousness was filled with seeds of classroom struggle. I instructed her to plant new seeds to assume that her students were capable, interested, and naturally inclined toward order. Before each class, she would imagine the feeling of teaching engaged, respectful students. She would feel the satisfaction of meaningful educational exchange. Within weeks, the atmosphere in her classroom transformed. The universe responded not to her wanting better behavior from her students, but to her assumption of already experiencing ideal classroom interactions. Persistence until naturalness. My dear friends, the transition from one state to another is rarely instantaneous in its physical manifestation. While the shift in consciousness can occur in a moment, the reorganization of your external circumstances typically unfolds over time. The key to successful manifestation is persistence, not the strained persistence of forcing yourself to believe something against all evidence, but the natural persistence that comes from knowing the law and trusting its operation. When you first assume a new state, it may feel artificial, like wearing clothes that don't quite fit. But with consistent attention to maintaining this state in consciousness, it eventually becomes your natural self-concept. When this naturalness is achieved, the manifestation of your desire is assured. I have observed that many abandon their imaginal work too soon. They assume the state of the wish fulfilled for a few days, see no immediate physical evidence, and conclude that the principle is not working. What they fail to realize is that manifestation follows a natural gestation period. Just as a seed planted in soil requires time to sprout and grow. There was a salesman who dreamed of doubling his income. Following these principles, he assumed the state of already earning his desired amount. For weeks, he maintained this assumption without seeing any change in his commission checks. Lesser men might have abandoned the practice, but he persisted. In the 9th week, he was offered a position managing a team of salespeople, a role that more than doubled his income. The universe had been responding to his assumption all along, rearranging circumstances in ways he could not have anticipated to deliver the essence of his desire. The distinction between wishing and assuming. As we near the conclusion of our discussion, I must emphasize the crucial distinction between wishing for something and assuming it as fact in consciousness. This distinction marks the difference between those who use the law successfully and those who remain perpetually disappointed. Wishing places your desire in an imaginary future that never arrives. It maintains the separation between you and your desire. Someday the wisher says, I will have what I want. And in this declaration, they ensure that their desire remains forever distant. Assuming, by contrast, collapses time, it brings your desire into the present moment as a completed fact. I am now what I desire to be, declares the one who assumes. And in this declaration, they unite with their desire, becoming in consciousness what they seek to be in experience. The universe does not respond to your wishes, it responds to your assumptions. It does not deliver what you want. It delivers what you are. The great secret then is to assume yourself to be what you seek, and from this assumption to live and act as though it were already so. I knew a woman who wished to reconcile with her estranged son. For years she had tried to re-establish contact, sending letters and messages that went. When she learned these principles, she ceased her external efforts and focused on assuming the state of already having a loving relationship with her son. Each night before sleep, she would imagine a scene that implied their reconciliation. She would feel the joy of their restored connection. She would hear his voice expressing love and forgiveness. She persisted in this practice, transferring her energy from wishing for a future reconciliation to experiencing a present harmony. Within 2 months, she received a phone call from her son, the first in over 3 years. The conversation led to a meeting, which led to the healing of their relationship. The universe responded not to her wanting reconciliation, but to her assumption of it as an accomplished fact, living in a state of abundance. My friends, as we bring this discussion to a close, I want to address the most common desire expressed by those who attend my lectures, the desire for greater abundance, prosperity, and financial freedom. Many approach this desire from a consciousness of lack. They see money as something outside themselves that they must struggle to acquire. They believe there is a limited supply of wealth, and they must compete with others to secure their portion. And as they maintain this consciousness, the universe faithfully delivers experiences of financial struggle and limitation. The truth is that abundance is not something you obtain, it is a state you occupy. When you live in the state of abundance, you experience yourself as connected to the infinite supply of the universe. You know with unshakable conviction that all your needs are met, not from a limited external source, but from the limitless source within. From this state, you take actions not from desperation, but from inspiration. You make decisions not from fear, but from a sense of security and possibility. And as you live from this state, the universe rearranges itself to reflect your consciousness of plenty. I recall a woman who had lived for years with financial anxiety, constantly worrying about paying her bills. When she learned these principles, she began to live from the state of abundance. Each night she would fall asleep feeling the relief and gratitude of having more than enough. During the day, she would walk through the world carrying this feeling of abundance, regardless of her bank balance. Within 3 months, opportunities for increased income appeared in her life. A skill she had developed as a hobby became the foundation for a profitable business. An investment she had made years earlier suddenly increased in value. The universe responded not to her wanting abundance, but to her being abundant in consciousness. The final word, faith in the Allah. We have covered much ground tonight, exploring the profound truth that the universe responds not to your wants, but to your state of being. As we conclude, I wish to leave you with a final thought on the role of faith in the application of this law. Faith in the context of manifestation is not blind belief in something for which there is no evidence. It is the conviction born of understanding that the law operates with mathematical precision. It is the certainty that when you assume a state in consciousness, the universe must deliver experiences that match that state. This faith is not something you must struggle to attain. It arises naturally from an intellectual and experiential understanding of the law. The more you observe the law in operation in your own life, the stronger your faith becomes until it transforms into knowing. Begin tonight to practice what you have learned. Choose one desire that has thus far eluded you. Rather than wanting it, assume the state of already possessing it. Create an imaginal scene that implies its fulfillment. Feel the reality of this scene. Fall asleep in this state. Maintain this assumption during your waking hours, and watch as the universe, with perfect fidelity, reshapes your external world to match your inner conviction. Remember always, the universe doesn't care what you want, it cares what you are. Assume yourself to be what you seek, and by law you must become it in experience. My dear friends, it has been my honor to share these principles with you tonight. May you use them wisely to create a life of fulfillment, joy, and service to your fellow man. For in the end, the greatest use of this law is not merely to acquire possessions, but to become the fullest expression of your dying potential. Go now in the confidence that the power that shapes worlds lies within you, responding always to your consciousness. The universe awaits your command, delivered not through wanting, not through pleading, but through the quiet assumption of already being what you desire to be. Many of you sit here tonight caught in states of waiting for better health, waiting for financial abundance, waiting for love to enter your life, waiting for recognition, waiting for peace of mind. But I tell you, waiting is the antithesis of creation. In the realm of imagination, which is the realm of God, for God and your wonderful human imagination are one and the same, there is no waiting. There is only the eternal now. Let us examine the words of Scripture. For all Scripture is a psychological drama taking place in the depth of your own being. In the book of Revelation, we read, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him and he with me." This door is not some physical entrance, but the door of your consciousness. Your miracle is knocking right now, asking for entrance into your world. Will you let it in? The great mistake that mankind makes is believing that miracles are external events that happen to us through some force outside ourselves. This is the great illusion. The truth, the absolute truth that I am giving you tonight is that miracles are not external happenings but internal assumptions. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, when you live from the end as though your desire were already an accomplished fact, you are performing the greatest miracle. I recall a lady who came to me in utter despair. For 15 years she had been separated from her son. Legal battles, geographic distance, and family disputes had created what appeared to be an insurmountable barrier between them. She had tried everything the external world offered: lawyers, mediators, letters, phone calls, but to no avail. Then she discovered this principle. Instead of dwelling in the state of separation, which only perpetuated that reality, she began to sleep each night in the assumption that her son was back in her life. She would fall asleep feeling the joy of their reunion, hearing his voice, feeling his embrace. Within 3 weeks after 15 years of separation, her phone rang. It was her son calling from a nearby town, asking if he could come see her. The external bridge was built because the internal bridge had been established first in her imagination. This is how your miracle will come. Not by fighting against current circumstances, not by forcing external events, but by assuming in the depth of your consciousness that you already are what you desire to be. For consciousness is the only reality, and everything else is merely its shadow. Many of you have been taught to believe that your desires are too grand, that you must be practical, reasonable, and conform to the limitations of the world around you. This is the greatest lie ever perpetuated upon mankind. The truth is that your consciousness knows no limitations, and the miracle you seek is limited only by your capacity to imagine it as real. The Bible tells us all things are possible to him that believeth. But what does it mean to believe? It does not mean to intellectually accept something as true. True belief is the complete acceptance of your desire as an already existing fact. It is when your inner conversation and feeling states are in complete alignment with your wish fulfilled. When you truly believe, you cease trying to make things happen, because in your consciousness they have already happened. I want you to understand something fundamental about the nature of your miracle. The time interval between your assumption and its physical manifestation is merely a device of your three-dimensional world. In the fourth dimension of consciousness, where your imagination dwells, your miracle already exists in its completeness. The appearance of time is simply the movement of events across the screen of your three-dimensional world. So many of you are giving up just before your miracle manifests physically. You plant the seed in consciousness by assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled. But then you dig it up repeatedly to see if it's growing. No farmer would expect a harvest by continually uprooting his seeds to check their progress. Similarly, you must allow your assumption to take root in the first soil of your consciousness without the interference. Let me share with you another principle that is crucial to the manifestation of your miracle. What you focus on expands. If you focus on the absence of your desire, on the lack, on the waiting, on the not having, then that state of consciousness will expand and perpetuate itself. But if you focus on the presence of your desire, on the feeling of having it now, that state will expand and externalize itself in your world. There is a story in the Bible of the woman with the issue of blood who touched the hem of Jesus' garment and was healed instantly. Jesus said to her, "Thy faith hath made thee whole." Now, who is this Jesus in the story? He is your own wonderful human imagination. And the woman's faith was not a passive hope that she might be healed someday. It was an active assumption that by touching the garment, by making contact with the power of imagination, she would be healed now. And she was. Your miracle operates by the same principle. It requires your active assumption, your complete conviction that it is done. The world may present you with 1,000 reasons why your desire cannot be fulfilled. Circumstances may seem to contradict the possibility of your miracle. People may discourage you with their limited thinking. But I say to you with absolute authority, all external evidence is only the product of past assumptions. It has no power to prevent new assumptions from reshaping your world. Do not be discouraged by appearances. Appearances are shadows, while your consciousness is the substance. As Neville, I tell you that the secret to manifestation lies not in manipulating shadows, but in changing the substance from which shadows are cast. When you change your concept of self, when you assume a new state of consciousness, the shadows must conform. Now let us speak of persistence, for many of you are on the verge of giving up. You have tried to apply these principles, but you have not yet seen the physical evidence of your desires. Perhaps you have even concluded that these principles do not work for you. Let me tell you why this conclusion is false and why you must persist. The law of assumption is just that, a law. It is as consistent and unwavering as the law of gravity. It does not work sometimes and fail other times. It is always operating, whether you are conscious of it or not. If your desire has not yet manifested, it is not because the law has failed. It is because you have not yet fully assumed the consciousness of having your desire. There may still be contradictory assumptions operating beneath the surface of your awareness. Remember the words of Scripture, "Let patience have a perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing." Patience in this context does not mean waiting passively for something to happen. It means maintaining your assumption regardless of appearances until the bridge of incidents has been built that leads to the feature manifestation of your desire. There is a perfect time for the externalization of your desires, a divine timing that human intellect cannot calculate. This divine timing is determined not by some external clock, but by the complete saturation of your consciousness with the feeling of your wish fulfilled. When there is no longer any conflict in your mind, when you have completely accepted your desire as an accomplished fact, then the miracle must come forth. I have seen countless individuals who were on the brink of giving up, who had tried everything and were ready to abandon their dreams, only to discover that their miracle was just around the corner. Had they given up, they would have never witnessed the manifestation that was already in motion. Think of Elijah in the Bible, who prayed for rain during a devastating drought. After his prayer, he sent his servant to look toward the sea for any sign of rain. 6 times the servant returned saying there was nothing. But on the 7th time, he reported seeing a small cloud, the size of a man's hand, rising from the sea. From that tiny cloud came a torrential downpour that ended the drought. Your miracle may begin as a small cloud on the horizon, a subtle shift in circumstances, an unexpected phone call, a chance meeting, a new idea. Do not despise these small beginnings, for they are the first physical evidence of the massive change that has already occurred in your consciousness. When Jesus stood before the tomb of Lazarus, who had been dead for 4 days, he did not pray for Lazarus to be resurrected. Instead, he said, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. He gave thanks before any physical evidence of the miracle was present. This is the secret thanksgiving in advance. When you give thanks for your miracle as though it has already happened, you are establishing in consciousness the very condition that will objectify itself in your world. Let us explore another dimension of this principle. Many of you believe that your miracle requires the cooperation of specific individuals or the arrangement of particular circumstances. You think, if only my boss would give me that promotion, or if only that person would love me, or if only the market would shift in my favor. But this is to misunderstand the nature of creation. Your consciousness does not depend on any external condition for its creative power. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, the entire universe rearranges itself to make that assumption a reality. People, circumstances, events, all are merely instruments for the externalization of your assumptions. They have no power to initiate causes. They can only reflect the causes you have initiated in your own consciousness. This principle removes all sense of dependency and victimhood. You are not at the mercy of others' decisions or external conditions. You are the operant power in your life. And the entire objective world is the servant of your assumptions. I recall a gentleman who was told by medical authorities that he had an incurable condition that would progressively worsen. The experts gave him no hope. But rather than accepting this verdict, he began to assume the feeling of perfect health. Each night before sleep, he would construct a scene implying that he was completely well. He would imagine his doctor expressing amazement at his recovery. He persisted in this assumption despite all physical evidence to the contrary. Within 6 months, he returned to his doctor for tests, and to the doctor's astonishment, there was no trace of the condition. The doctor called it a medical miracle. But it was not a medical miracle, it was a miracle of consciousness. You see, the creative power does not reside in the doctor, the medicine, or any external agency. It resides in your consciousness. When you change your concept of self, you change your relationship to everything in your world, including your own body. Now, I want to address a crucial aspect of manifestation that many overlook. Your miracle is not something separate from yourself. You are not trying to attract something from outside. You are awakening to the reality that everything you desire already exists within you in a state of potential. Manifestation is not attraction, it is expression. It is the outpicturing of what already exists within. Think of an acorn. Within that tiny seed exists the full potential of a mighty oak tree. The oak is not attracted to the acorn from outside. It unfolds from within as the inherent nature of the acorn expresses itself. Similarly, your miracle is the natural expression of the state of consciousness you have assumed. It is the oak tree emerging from the acorn of your assumption. This understanding transforms how you approach manifestation. Instead of trying to get something, you focus on being something. For what you are is what you will express, and what you express is what you will experience in your three-dimensional world. In the Bible we read, "Let this mind be in you which was also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God." This is not blasphemy, it is the statement of a psychological fact. Your imagination, Christ in you, is God in action. When you assume the mind of having what you desire, you are exercising the same creative power that created the universe. Your miracle is not coming, it exists now as a present reality in the imagination. And since imagination creates reality, the feeling state you assume today must objectify itself in your tomorrow. This is law, not luck or chance. Many of you have spent years affirming positive thoughts while maintaining a feeling state of lack. You have recited affirmations of abundance while feeling poor. You have declared health while feeling sick. You have professed love while feeling unloved. But I tell you, it is not what you affirm with your lips, but what you affirm in feeling that creates your reality. For feeling is the prayer, and prayer is feeling. What you feel, you attract. What you imagine with feeling, you become. Consider the story of Jacob and Esau. Jacob, whose name means supplanter, covered himself with the skins of goats to simulate the hairiness of his brother Esau. When his blind father Isaac felt him, He believed he was touching Esau and gave Jacob the blessing intended for the firstborn. This story is not about deception, but about the power of assumption. When you assume the feeling of being what you want to be, even though your reason and senses deny it, you receive the blessing, the manifestation of that state. Your miracle is already yours in the invisible reality of consciousness. The only distance between you and its physical manifestation is the distance between your present concept of self and the concept you would assume if your desire were already fulfilled. Close that gap in consciousness, and you close the gap in manifestation. Let me share with you a technique that has helped countless individuals bridge this gap. It is the technique of living from the end. Before you fall asleep each night, construct a scene in your imagination that would imply your miracle has already happened. Make this scene as vivid and as real as possible. Engage all your senses. What would you see? What would you hear? What would you feel? What would you smell or taste? How would others respond to you? Create this scene with such clarity that it feels more real than your bedroom. Then, enter fully into this scene. Don't observe it from a distance, be a participant in it. Feel the emotions you would feel if this were actually happening. Allow the joy, the gratitude, the peace, the excitement to course through your body. Fall asleep in this state, for the subconscious mind is most impressionable as you enter the sleep state. Do this night after night, and you will begin to notice subtle shifts in your waking reality. Opportunities will appear that were not there before. Resources will become available. People will respond to you differently. These are the signs that your assumption is taking root and beginning to objectify itself in your world. But do not make the mistake of looking for your miracle exactly as you have imagined it. The bridge of incidents that leads to your desire may take unexpected forms. Trust the wisdom of your deeper mind to bring about your desire in ways that your intellect cannot conceive. Your role is to maintain the assumption of the end, not to dictate the means. Now let us confront the great enemy of manifestation, doubt. Doubt is not the opposite of faith. It is faith in the opposite. When you doubt, you are actually exercising faith in what you do not want. You are assuming the feeling of not having, and that assumption must objectify itself just as surely as the assumption of having. The antidote to doubt is not blind optimism, but a deeper understanding of the creative process. When doubt arises, do not fight it or deny it. Instead, recognize it as a signal that you have temporarily slipped back into the old state of consciousness. Then, gently but firmly return to your new assumption. Persist in the assumption that your miracle is already yours, and eventually that assumption will harden into fact. Remember the words of Jesus, according to your faith be it unto you. Faith is not a sentiment, it is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It is the feeling tone of already having what you desire. When you maintain this feeling despite all evidence to the contrary, you are exercising true faith, and your miracle must come. I want to address something that prevents many from fully applying these principles, the fear of disappointment. Some of you hold back from fully assuming your desire is fulfilled because you fear the pain of disappointment if it doesn't materialize. You think you are protecting yourself, but in reality, you are guaranteeing the very disappointment you seek to avoid. For the law of assumption operates with mathematical precision. What you assume, you become. If you assume that your desire might not be fulfilled, that assumption itself creates the condition where it cannot be fulfilled. But if you assume with complete conviction that it is already fulfilled, nothing in this world can prevent its manifestation. The secret is to transfer your faith from the evidence of the senses to the evidence of imagination. When you can feel the reality of your imagined state with the same intensity that you now feel the reality of your physical state, your miracle is assured. Consider the parable of the talents. The servant who buried his talent in the ground did so out of fear. He was afraid of losing what he had. But the master condemned this action, taking the 1 talent from him and giving it to the one who had 10 talents. This parable illustrates a profound psychological law. What you fear, you attract. What you try to avoid, you invite. The only way to truly possess what you desire is to assume the feeling of already possessing it. Your miracle is not some distant possibility. It is a present reality in consciousness waiting to be claimed. The choice is yours. Will you continue to live from the assumption of lack, of waiting, of hoping that someday your desire will be fulfilled? Or will you have the courage to assume right now that what you desire is already yours? I challenge you tonight to make a fundamental shift in consciousness. Stop thinking of yourself as someone who is trying to achieve a goal, and stop thinking of yourself as someone who has already achieved it. Stop seeing yourself as someone who is working toward health, and start seeing yourself as someone who is already healthy. Stop feeling yourself to be unloved, and start feeling yourself to be deeply loved. For what you assume, you become, and what you become in consciousness, you express in reality. The outer world may convince you that your miracle is impossible. People may tell you that you are being unrealistic, that you should accept your limitations and be content with less than your heart desires. But I tell you with absolute certainty, the only limitations that exist are those you accept in consciousness. Change your consciousness, and you change your world. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. This word is not some utterance spoken thousands of years ago. It is the creative power of your own wonderful human imagination operating now, in this moment. When you speak the word in consciousness by assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you are invoking the same creative power that brought the universe into being. Your miracle does not require you to be special, talented, educated, wealthy, or well-connected. It requires only that you understand and apply the creative principle. That is your birthright as a human being. This principle is no respecter of persons. It works for anyone who applies it, regardless of their background, circumstances, or past failures. I have seen individuals from all walks of life transform their reality through the proper use of imagination. I have witnessed those without formal education achieve intellectual heights beyond the reach of scholars. I have seen the physically frail restore themselves to vibrant health. I have watched the financially destitute rise to prosperity. I have observed the lonely and rejected become surrounded by love and acceptance. All through the same principle I am sharing with you tonight, the principle that imagination creates reality. The question is not whether your miracle is possible. The question is whether you are willing to assume the consciousness required for its manifestation. Are you willing to let go of your present concept of self and assume a new concept that aligns with your desire? Are you willing to live from the end even when all sensory evidence contradicts it? Are you willing to persist in your assumption until it hardens into fact? If your answer is yes, then your miracle is not merely coming, it is here now, waiting to be recognized and claimed. For in the realm of consciousness, where all creation begins, time and space do not exist as we know them in the three-dimensional world. Your tomorrow exists now as a present possibility. By assuming the feeling of that possibility as a present fact, you collapse time and bring your desire into your today. Remember the words of Scripture: before they call, I will answer, and while they are yet speaking, I will hear. This is not some supernatural promise, but a statement of psychological law. The answer to your prayer, your miracle, exists before you even ask for it. It exists as a state of consciousness that you can enter through the portal of imagination. When you truly understand this principle, you will never again beg or plead for your good. You will never again feel dependent on external circumstances or other people. You will know with unshakable conviction that your consciousness is the only reality and everything else is its servant. I encourage you tonight to embark on a bold experiment. Select one desire that you've been struggling to manifest. Perhaps it's a relationship, a job opportunity, a health condition, or a financial goal. For the next 30 days, commit to living completely from the assumption that this desire is already fulfilled. Construct a scene that implies its fulfillment and enter this scene each night before sleep. During your waking hours, conduct your inner conversations as though your desire were already a fact. Do not tell anyone about this experiment. Keep it as a sacred covenant between you and your own wonderful human imagination. At the end of 30 days, you will be amazed at how your outer world has begun to reflect your inner assumption. Your miracle is not subject to chance or luck. It is governed by law, the law of consciousness. This law states that whatever you assume to be true in consciousness must objectify itself in your reality. It cannot do otherwise, for consciousness is the one and only reality, and everything else is merely its projection. Throughout human history, those who have discovered this law have performed what the world calls miracles. But they were not miracles in the sense of violations of natural law. They were the natural expressions of a higher law, the law that consciousness is the only reality. And when consciousness is changed, reality must change to reflect it. As we near the conclusion of our time together, I want to emphasize a critical point. Your miracle is not contingent on anything outside yourself. It does not depend on the economy, the government, other people's opinions, your past experiences, or your present circumstances. It depends solely on the state of consciousness you assume and maintain. This understanding liberates you from the tyranny of circumstances. You are no longer a victim of conditions, but a creator of conditions. You are no longer at the mercy of the world, but are the master of your world. For the world is nothing more than your consciousness objectified. I invite you tonight to embrace this liberating truth. Your miracle is already yours in consciousness. Claim it, feel it, live from it. And watch as the outer world reshapes itself to match the pattern you have established within. Remember, the kingdom of heaven is within you. This kingdom is not a place but a state of consciousness. When you enter the state of having your desire fulfilled, you have entered the kingdom. And from that kingdom, your miracle will manifest as naturally and as inevitably as dawn follows night. Do not give up. Persist in your assumption. For your persistence is not a struggle against reality, but the assertion of a deeper reality, the reality of consciousness, as the only creative power in your world. Your miracle is here now. It exists this very moment in your imagination. By the law of assumption, what exists in imagination must objectify itself in your reality. This is not theory or speculation, it is law. And when you align yourself with this law, nothing in this world can prevent the fulfillment of your desire. Go forth in the conviction that what you have assumed in consciousness is already yours in experience. Live from that conviction and watch as the miracle unfolds before your eyes, not as something new coming into your life, but as the natural expression of what you have already accepted as true, the one and only reality, the reality of consciousness. I leave you with this promise: all things whatsoever ye shall ask in prayer, believing ye shall receive. Believe not with your intellect, but with your feeling. Feel the reality of your desire now, and in the not distant future, you will hold in your hands the manifestation of that which you have already held in your consciousness. Your miracle is not coming, it has come. Recognize it, claim it, and it is yours. For you are the operant power, and your consciousness is the one and only reality.